Today we're going to be talking about hammers, mallets, and things that whack things. I'm going to take it as a given that everybody out there knows what a hammer is. I'm sure everyone's familiar with your typical claw hammer, used the world over for bending nails and smashing thumbs. Also a tiny version in case you really want to bend that nail in a hard to reach place so that you can never unbend it and get it back out. You also have your ball, peen, and facing hammer, used for flattening metal and then subsequently putting a bunch of dimples that are way too deep into it. You have your cross peen hammer, used for lengthening or elongating and thinning metals, and then inadvertently snapping them right in two. A bigger version of those for when you only want to do it in 2 swings instead of the normal 4. A sledgehammer, well, the head of it at least. You also have your rubber mallet, excellent for marring up finished surfaces because you forgot to remove the metal shavings from the last time you used it to beat the wheels back onto your bandsaw. And for when you really want to destroy that piece of joinery you've been working on for the past couple of months, you can use this guy right here. You also have your chipping hammer, used for marring up previously fine welds. Commonly used but less commonly understood is the miner's hammer and the linesman hammer. So that's my collection. So we're going to make one more today. I think at least one more. Yeah, maybe a couple. I don't know, we'll see. Remember that table from a couple of videos ago? Finished it. I want to make these handles a little fancy, so I'm going to put some, I guess you wouldn't call it an inlay, but some accent in between it. So I'm going to rip them in half. So this is my bandsaw, original Mark V bandsaw attachment for one of the original Mark V shopsmiths. I've just got it set up on its own power stand because I use it so frequently. Not really a whole lot going on here. I've geared it up to about 1100 RPM, give or take. I've modified it a little bit by cutting in and putting this little access window so I can see the tensioning assembly. Right here I can see that it's tensioned properly for the 3/8 blade that's on there. I've also drilled out this hole to give me access to the tensioning nut, I guess you would say. Yeah, well, like I said, that's my bandsaw. Let's get cutting. The main reason I'm okay with using the bandsaw for this operation, that is to say, the reason I'm okay with the inherent skew in the cut from the various grain patterns the blade encounters as it's traveling through the material. Anyways, that's because when I glue this up, I'll simply make those the outsides and glue the accent pieces, which have already all been faced flat together with the 2 flat sides. So the waviness and unevenness isn't going to matter. That'll all go away when I shape the handle. Pretty neat, huh? It's really cold outside today. The glue is pretty thick. Okay, given this isn't the best way to do this, I should have glued the first layer to the halves and then glued the middle layer after those had dried. But I'm impatient, and it doesn't have to be perfect because it's going to be for a hammer. Okay, well, let those chooch for a couple hours. Be back to do some shaping up in a little bit. If you've been hearing that whirring in the background and wondering what I've been printing, I'm working on this scan of a Triceratops skull that was found here in Colorado. And I'm 1 day and 22 hours into it. Only 54% there. Yeah. Well, it's tomorrow. I got all the clamps off. They glued up really nicely with the exception of this one place right here. I'll just have to cut a couple little wedges and jam them in there. I took them over the bandsaw, cleaned them up real quick. This one was skewed like this just by a very, very little bit. I got these kind of interesting cuttings off of it. Maybe like a bookmark or something. I don't know. Time for a little markup. Let's see. I don't know, somewhere thereabouts. Looks like it should be plenty for the head. Okay, to the bandsaw. Safety third. This has been a test of my patience and my tolerance for anxiety. I really need to get a UPS. So I'm definitely doing this operation backwards, but I'd already marked everything up on the one side before I got here, and I didn't want to go back and redo it. Anyways, I'd like to take a little bit of thickness off of it this ways, and in order to do that, I'm gonna tape what I cut off back on so that I have a nice flat surface to run across the bandsaw table. I'm going to clean those handles up with my belt sander, but first I got to change out from my 400 to something a little rougher, I think 150. Process on the Shopsmith is super simple, or it used to be until I ground an edge that I have to work my thumb under here. Other than that, belt just pops right off, and I just slide a new one on and let that tensioning assembly free, and bada bing bada boom. Easy peasy. Ta-da! Yeah, so I got ahead and cut the slit in as well, and I marked out on here where the head's going to sit. This was too hard to do on camera, but basically you just square that guy up on there as best you can. The head relative to the handle, not the hole, because the hole is actually a little crooked this ways. And then just draw it on there with a pencil. So I'll come back and take the corners off with the chisel in a little bit. But in the meantime, let's get cracking on the joiner's mallet head. That's good. Okay, I also want a nice arc on the bottom of this one. This looks pretty good. It's good! Alright, so I cut this block out over at the miter saw. Just clamp it on here whenever I go to hit my chisel in, to make sure I'm keeping it at the right angle. And then for the bottom, I can just flip it over. Same thing. Side cuts are just straight up and down, so no, nothing fancy there. Could even use the back of the block, I guess, if I wanted to. So this is all finished up now. I went ahead and cut out a wedge as well. This was just the same kind of material I used for the accent pieces, and then I sanded it down on the belt sander to get the wedge shape. This should be the right length with a little bit left over. when I test fit this, the whole thing closed up. So I think this, you know, basically same fit wedge should work. If you're too big or too small, it really doesn't work right. So next up, we're going to do a little bit of shaping on this guy. And I'm waiting for my mistake to dry before we can keep working on this one. So in addition to being a disc and belt sander, the Shopsmith is also a drum sander. I could move this table that the camera is sitting in up to give myself a work surface, but then you guys wouldn't be able to see what I'm going to do. So just going to do it freehand here. Ugh, not plugged in every time. I'm done sanding for a little bit, and I need this thing to be a drill press now. Figure I'd show you how I do that. Slide this guy off. Take the little coupler off. Reposition this about where we want it. I think that looks pretty good. You'll see in a second. Lock this back down. Make sure this is locked down. Loosen this off. And flip it away. And finally, just tighten this guy down. Lock it all in. And we're ready to drill some holes, baby. Alright, I got a couple blocks jigged up. Just help me keep her steady while I'm going down and have to flip it over. From this bit here, it says max RPM 1000, and I made these handy dandy stickers once upon a time. So I know I'm going to have to put it to speed D, which corresponds to 1050. So maybe actually B or C, somewhere in that range. Here goes nothing. So, got the head on and fit up pretty well. Also got it shaped and roughly sanded. Still need to go back and refine this with some better grits. Okay, in all seriousness, I don't know how long this handle's gonna last. Came out a bit anemic for the size of the head that's on there. We'll see how far through a knife we can get. This guy, on the other hand, solid. Ain't going nowhere. Thinking about it. Alright, so besides the fact that this hammer is toast and pretty much completely unusable / unsafe, we're past the point of eating it. So, I'm going to move to my other guy. A little more manageable, a little more solid. Finish it up. Well, I ran out of propane. So, a little taste of what a big ass hammer like this can do. This was more or less a complete failure. I never made this style of hammerhead before. I reckon I'll need to do this again because I don't want to use this thing again. It's scary. I'll have to find another head to replace it. I think one of the things that was tricky, it might be hard to see, but there's a lip running around the middle of this thing. So in order to get my shaft to fit, my tines, my whatever you call these, the two bits that squeeze out into the inside of the hammer, to get those to fit, they had to be a good bit smaller than like what you would see here. I'm not sure how it was initially fit up. It might have been with epoxy, so I don't know. I'll have to get in there with the file and try again or something. But yeah, it was a good practice. Worked enough for one knife, but I'm gonna have to add it to the firewood bin now. This one, on the other hand, came out exceptionally nice. I'm really pleased with this. This is not my design. I saw the hammerhead shape online somewhere and was like, gosh, I gotta make one like that. The handle's mine though. I just, whip that up really quick. I'm not sure if I'll do anything else to it. Probably drill a hole in the butt here so I can hang it with a little rope or something. But I don't want to leave you all unsatisfied with the knife. A couple videos ago, I'd mentioned a nice slab of Damascus steel, 15N20 and 1095. This is another one, but that slab I'd shown before has since been finished. It came out swimmingly, so I'm gonna go get more propane and I'll finish this guy up. I'll show it off in the next video, I suppose. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. See you next time.